Hello, everyone. My name is Noxwar, and I figured I'd give you all a little vlog tonight because unfortunately, Sandy's internet is down. So your normally scheduled flight check content will probably be appearing on Thursday instead, and we'll be doing our LCS power rankings for the summer. So until then, the NACL lately has been a bit of a drama fest, and I kind of wanted to go over it a little bit because I thought it was kind of interesting, and I wanted to maybe shed a little bit of light on it. So. And as you can see right here, we'll get into that here in a little bit, but that's kind of the juicy, fun stuff. But however, before we get to that point, this is a FlyQuest channel, or FlyQuest related channel, I should say. We cover FlyQuest related stuff, and so I think it's only fair if, in the spirit of NACL, we talk about a little player known as Srtty, who is the FlyQuest Challengers top laner. Srtty here has been really popping off lately, and I say that because not only has he won one North American Challengers League Spring Split, which is really big in and of itself, he also won the NACL tournament, which is all the big colleges that compete under Riot Scholastic Associations America. So he's got two big, massive back-to-back trophies in the past 3 to 4 weeks. It's pretty big. You don't see that very often for any North American players lately. There's not a lot of people who are finding that kind of success lately. And in addition to this, the man's also got a 100% win rate solo queue account in Grandmasters. It's a tad bit nuts. He's grinding hard, and he's really he's popping off right now. So I wanted to take the time a little bit and just give him his flowers. He's been performing very well lately, and I think he deserves a little more than just some random FlyQuest fan shouting him out on his little video. And I say that because apparently, according to Papa Smithy, no teams considered Srtty for LCS. There was no inquiries. No one approached FlyQuest. No one approached Srtty. Nothing. Nada. And there's more to this screenshot that I'll get into here in a second because I do want to talk about that. But that's a bit of a shame, right? This is someone who has been absolutely dominating the scene for the past couple months, and I think in the current landscape of top laners in the LCS, Srtty should have absolutely been looked at. There was a couple top laners who have not been doing so well in the LCS, and I think that he could have easily slotted in at and either began getting experience while not being a detriment to his team, or B, even started carrying these teams, right? So the fact that not a single team approached FlyQuest or Srtty for this possible trade or pickup or whatever, it's just dreadful GMing is how I will put it. That is bad GMing. And so there's kind of some reasoning behind why this may have happened, right? So it's not purely on the GMs for not doing this. Don't get me wrong, it's mainly on the GMs. You should not ever be letting this guy go without at least having an inquiry. But there's kind of a reason why a lot of GMs, I imagine, did not inquire about Srtty. And a lot of that is because a few weeks back, maybe a month back or so, I'm not sure exactly the time frame, Srtty was on stream and he made a statement saying that he had a buyout. And you know what? If you think about it from a sports perspective or an esports perspective from a few years back, that makes sense, right? The team's taking time to develop you and build you up and make you into the player that you are. You usually want some form of return on investment, right? And so you normally put a buyout on player. Part of the problem is right now we're still in the middle of esports winter, and it is a cold one, let me tell you. Teams don't want to pay for buyouts right now, even if they're as small as what Papa Smithy insinuates here, with it being as maximum 4 figures. What that 4 figures is, I'm not sure, but let's just, you know what? Let's put it as minimum, because I really do think even if you had it at the minimum of $1,000, teams aren't going to ask, because that's what the narrative is. Oh, there's a buyout. And don't get me wrong, like I said earlier, it's still on the GMs for not inquiring. That's really dreadful, awful, terrible GMing, but that was what the narrative was. He had a buyout. No team in this economy where everything's getting downsized, people are getting laid off, there's not nearly as many cool features that are happening anymore. people are getting paid less in general. Like, why would a team ever want to pay for a buyout when they can go get someone who most likely is worse than Srtty, right? But when they can go get someone who's worse than Srtty but is also free, they're not going to pay for it. And this is kind of something I had a little bit of a debate with Papa Smithy about in a different Discord. But basically my statement was like, I just don't see a reason why teams would ever want to do this. And long story short, it basically kind of came down to, like, his buyout would have become $0, which, cool. It would have become $0. And more specifically, his contract had a set buyout of a maximum of 4 figures. If someone really wanted him and that was a stumbling block, it would have become $0. Cool. Again, it just goes back to the fact that at the end of the day, there was in some way, shape, or form, at least narrative-wise, or at least social, like, thought process-wise, there was a buyout. And that, in my opinion, is what did all the damage in the world. Like, you can have your intentions, and you can have, like, you can have every intention to say, hey, his buyout would have been $0. Come get this player because he deserves to be on the LCS stage. If the narrative there that there's a buyout, even if, like, there's some hoops that you have to jump to that would make that buyout $0, what more need I say outside of, I mean, it's still on the GMs, but, like, come on. So anyway, that was something I kind of wanted to talk about. That was a little frustrating to read and see because I think Srtty is someone who should be on the LCS stage. So, having said that, let's get into other more fun drama. I'll let this sit on the page for a second. If you haven't seen this is Mobility Lowell. He's an AD carry. Been in and out of the NACL OQs, trying to get his way into NACL. I may have even played in NACL briefly. I'm not remembering off the top of my head currently. Long story short, he says, people's signatures and word don't mean shit, I guess. GG's. And Sketchstreams, who's also been a pro player in the NACL, replies, so you're telling me you can sign a contract and not play to go to another team? And as long as your contract is not in the GCD, which not a single NACL player, if you aren't aware of this, is in the GCD, because no team is paying a player $60,000 a year to be on it. That's the requirement to be on the GCD, basically, and securing your contract. No org, no team is doing that currently unless you're in the LCS. So not a single NACL player is in it because no team is giving $60K minimum to be on it. So you can just poach all you want in the NACL. And if another team gives $200 more, what's that in reference to? Well, Collimer points it out over here and says, shout out to Winsome for making the Winthrop University versus Fear matchup 10 times more interesting. So, to fill y'all in, Winsome was signed by Winthrop University and was going to be the support player for that roster in the NACL because Winthrop, which that's another thing we'll get into here in a second. There's a lot of stuff for the NACL. It's fun. But Winthrop made it into the NACL and they hired Winsome. However, apparently as of a couple days ago, Fear poached Winsome to be on their team. And originally, so this was going to be a JJ, and then Fear, who's... I did not save the tweet. Oh, I did. So due to medical... basically, it was originally going to be JJ. And basically, due to medical issues and personal, he's going to be shifting to a substitute position. We will stand by him through this recovery and support him along the way. As a result, we've decided to assign Winsome to our starting roster for NACL Summer 2024. Wild. Continuing further down, abiding by Riot's rules, inquiring about players through management and players' representation, we search for a suitable replacement that we believe gives us the best chance to succeed the split. We are excited to have Winsome and provide him with a great opportunity to be successful. Okay. This is a great question right here. Just for transparency, was Winsome contractually signed by Winthrop University? To which Fear replies, per the player's representation, there was no legal issue. So this is kind of where we get into the third thing. Contracts in the NACL. It is the equivalent of like the Wild Wild West. They don't really exist until like the season starts, basically, and it is wild. Okay, and just really quick, the main reason I had McChickens in the thumbnail was because of this tweet from Blue Water, which I just found was really, really funny. Anyway, so contracts in the NACL are very, very fickle, because a lot of them are just verbal agreements, at least up until the roster lock date, which, by the way, I would like to point out, is on the exact same day as the NACL OQs. So all these teams, all these NACL teams are trying to get all their stuff sorted, blah, 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 yada, yada. And basically, Riot is not really doing a great job of overseeing what people are doing with these contracts or these verbal agreements and so on and so forth. There's not a lot of accountability being held. And that's kind of what's frustrating, because then you get things like this where suddenly Fear are taking a support player away from a previously verbally signed agreement. And then where is the... So this right here, this is Winthrop, staff member basically saying Cincinnati Fear is poached to support Winsome for NACL, tampering with player when we have a signed agreement with. Yeah. All this is just goes to show like how unprofessional NACL is currently, right? And that's kind of where my next little statement comes in, is I would really, really implore that going into next season, Riot really takes a look at the NACL and realizes how it's no longer Academy. It doesn't really follow the LCS rules anymore. It's got its own actors and orgs and individuals and players, and it's its own ecosystem at this point. It's very, very small compared to the LCS, but it's a different one nonetheless, and it is still technically part of the North American scene, and it needs to be taken care of. So I would really, really like to see Riot in the future, heading into 2025, make it a point to look at maybe some contractual rules that need to be held by NACL teams, and maybe uphold a better standard for how teams and players can go about talking to either their agents or other teams and so on and so forth. Because stuff like this is not really professional, and it gives kind of a bad look, and it also prevents a lot of like sponsors from feeling confident from jumping into the scene, and that's kind of what the scene needs right now. It needs cash influx. It needs help from sponsors to stay alive and stay afloat. So all that to say, that's what I really hope Riot does in the future. And the good news is a Riot staff member in the LOL Discord did reply saying that they are internally aware of this. So good stuff to see. The last thing I would kind of like to talk about really fast is the fact that we're gonna hit on Winthrop again a little bit, as well as like just kind of in general some of the way teams kind of make their way into the NACL. So for those of you who were not following the past year of NACL, we had two teams that were relegated, Mirage Alliance and Lit Esports, and in replacement we had the qualification of Blue Otter and CCG Esports, which cool, all well. It's fun. We love having promo relegation. It makes it very fun and exciting. Part of the problem is teams just up and leaving, though, partially because of like what the esports landscape looks like right now, right? And part of that landscape is the fact that Wildcard Gaming Spot, who is a member of the NACL last split, is now gone. They sold, and the spot went to Winthrop University. So the main thing I really want to point out here, because this happened with Supernova 2 a couple splits back, was some of these teams just buy their spot in and that's it. And there's no real like documentation, there's no articles, there's no real journalism on it. And it's just kind of like, how did this happen, right? And for what it's worth, the two teams that Riot has let in Supernova and Winthrop University, they've been fairly reliant esports organizations, or at least maybe not reliant necessarily, but like historical. They've been around for a little bit. They've proven themselves in the scene. They're here to stick around, which generally should give you a little bit of faith that they're going to somewhat try, even if they're maybe not necessarily always good faith actors. And I'm not saying that Supernova and Winthrop aren't. I'm just in generalization. So going into the future, I think I would like either more statements and coverage from Riot, or maybe even third-party journalism, whoever that may be. I know there's not a lot of money in the scene for that, but it's just a guy can wish, right? But I wish there was more coverage in the reasoning for why these teams were selected and given NACL spots. And then the last thing I will cover before we wrap this video up, because we're already 14 minutes in, Blue Otter, or not Blue Otter, CCG, if you notice, they've got a bit of a blank slate. No players signed whatsoever. Kind of interesting, right? So typically, there's a rule that states that upon entering the NACL, you should have at least 4/7 of your roster maintain, like, be the same. That's the rule. How you do that with subs or whatever, you can do some finicky stuff. Mirage Alliance last split did some really, really weird stuff. I didn't like it, but it is what it is. They were following rules. There's another thing with CCG right now where basically all of the players just up and quit. And they said, we're out, we're done. Some of them, Bradley, for instance, joined FlyQuest. A couple others went into different spots around the league. You'll find them all in the NACL in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe not. But my point being is that they're effectively entering the NACL without a roster after qualifying with a roster. And that, in my opinion, should not be allowed. I don't know what the solution would be. I don't know if Riot would make them forfeit their spot and give it back to like Lit Esports or to Mirage or whoever didn't qualify for the promotion league. I'm not sure what the solution is there, but this does not seem right. I don't think an org should be able to enter the NACL with the roster, lose every single member of that roster, and then still be able to compete while doing tryouts for all of them, who they still have not even signed yet, by the way. The roster deadline for it is like basically now, and they have like no one. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Those were just some of the things I wanted to highlight really quick in the NACL because it's been kind of fun and exciting lately. And I think more people should watch it, especially with some of the big news that's coming up with like the international tournament, hopefully at the end of this year. Haven't heard anything from Riot on that one in a while. Then I think just you got big like org name signings such as Brandon Sanderson coming in. You got Starforge coming in, Dragonsteel. You got NZXT for FlyQuest, which is cool. And it's just kind of becoming its own league. And it's actually becoming very, very fun and exciting. So I think a lot of people should start tuning in and getting eyeballs on it. Because hopefully with more eyeballs, you can also have more people going to Riot saying, hey, you should hold these people accountable. So anyway, that's it for Nox Monologues. We will be live Thursday. We'll be going over the LCS power rankings, or our power rankings from Flight Check. And first week of LCS and NACL starts this Saturday, so it should be fun and exciting. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all around.